if any, contact did you have with Mr. Depp during the period from April 21 to May 21, 2016?
I had no physical contact with him.
Okay. I'm going to take you to May 2nd, 2016, the Met Gala. Can you please just briefly describe to the jury what a Met Gala is, where it is, and what's involved?
It's arguably the biggest fashion kind of celebrity event, red carpet event of the year. It happens every year in New York City.
And were you invited?
I was invited. Typically, designers will invite people in the public eye to be their, guests, and they will typically dress them, and it's a way for designers or fashion to kind of intersect with a celebrity world, and it's a big event held at the museum every year.
And what, if anything, did you and Mr. Depp do to prepare for that Met Gala?
Well, Johnny and I were, we were dressed by Ralph Lauren, guests of Ralph Lauren, and Johnny missed the fitting because it was happening around the date of my birthday party in Los Angeles. But we were planning on going together as Ralph Lauren's guests.
Okay. And did you show up?
I did. I didn't have a phone at the time because I couldn't get it reinstated after Johnny threw it out of the window because no one on his team would respond to me. So I had no way to kind of reinstall it. I had, it's no point in getting a burner phone if you don't know anyone's phone number. So I wasn't sure really what was going on or when he would show up or if he would show up. No one would talk to me on his team. No one would tell me. I didn't know. So I ended up going by myself. Frankly, I wasn't sure if he'd show up and, on the carpet or if he'd show up at the hotel shortly before. I had no way of knowing.
All right. And then did you attend the Met Gala?
I did. I got out of the car and walked the red carpet by myself, escorted by somebody from Ralph Lauren's team. And I sat next to an empty place setting for Johnny that they cleared as soon as we realized that he effectively stood me up on the carpet.
Who did you meet at the Met Gala?
I was standing in line right in front of a gentleman. It was Elon. I didn't recognize him until we started talking. And he had reminded me that we had met once before. He was with his mother.
Okay. And did you strike up a friendship with Mr. Musk after that?
We did. We, as I mentioned, we spoke on the red carpet, kind of on the waiting line of the carpet. He seemed like a real gentleman. He was really nice, and he sat next to me. Well, not next to me. He sat kind of in a nearby table, and we got to speaking that night, and then eventually became friends.
Okay. I'm going to, Michelle, can you pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 46? It's already in evidence. It's Aaron Filati's notes. And I'm going to ask you to go to page 30. And I'm going to direct your attention to the entry for 5/11/2016, where it says, if I can see, here we go. Let me see if I can do some reasonable highlighting here. Okay, it says client laughed and also reported using illicit drugs, mushrooms and MDMA on 5/9/2016 at home with a high-profile male acquaintance. Client reported that her husband was not aware of the male visitor nor her illicit drug use. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Who was the high-profile male acquaintance that visited your home on 5/9/2016?
I don't recall even being in LA at that time.
Where were you?
I don't recall. I believe I was in London at the time.
Okay. Did you have a male high-profile client at your home in or around 5/9/2016?
Not around that date. It seems like it's a wrong date.
Okay. And did you use illicit drugs, mushrooms, and MDMA with any high-profile client?
No, I did that at the Coachella Music Festival, and that was the end of that. I learned the hard way that that was a terrible idea.
All right. Well, while we are on these same notes, I'm going to refer to the Coachella, which is up above, and it says it states she ingested mushrooms and MDMA simultaneously while also consuming alcohol, and states she vomited and was high for at least 24 hours straight. Were you high for at least 24 hours straight?
No, I was not. I felt awful, but I was at home feeling awful. At home, meaning at the hotel, with my best friend in bed.
Okay. Well, while I'm still on these notes, let's go. I know while Aaron Filati was testifying, we recall the 5/21/2016 isn't on here. You'd sent her pictures, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Then let's go to 5/26/2016, and it says, client reports having the hardest week of my life. Client states she cannot deal with the negative media publicity she has received. And then if we can jump that up, Michelle, to the next page, surrounding the divorce she requested from her husband, J.D. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. When did you go in for the DVTRO?
May 27th.
So that was the day after Aaron Filati's note saying you just had the toughest week of your life?
That's correct.
Okay. While we are still on this one, let's go up to the first page for the client history. When did you provide a client history to Aaron Filati?
Never.
When did you first get assigned Aaron Filati?
I believe September of 2014.
Okay. Now it says here that client reports a history of substance abuse, including an addiction to cocaine and liquor. When did you have a history of substance abuse, including addiction to cocaine and liquor?
I did not. There's a lot of mistakes in here.
Okay. Did you ever use cocaine?
I have. I used cocaine a few times when I was 18, 19 years old, but stopped using any drugs, including cocaine, when I got into a relationship with my ex-partner. She was very against that, and I'm glad for it.
Okay. Then it also says here that I'm going to move up a little. Here we go. Client admits to history of anxiety, eating disorder, attention deficit disorder, bipolar disorder, codependence issues, and occasional insomnia. When have you had an eating disorder?
I've never had an eating disorder.
Okay. When have you been diagnosed with bipolar disorder?
I've never been diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
When have you been diagnosed with codependence issues?
I have never been diagnosed with codependency issues, although arguably at the time, from where I stand now, I can see that the relationship I was in with Johnny was certainly codependent.
Okay.
But I wouldn't have reported that at the time. I didn't know about that.
All right, and then can we move up a little bit more, Michelle? Thank you. It has, per report from JD, Debbie RN, Dr. Kipper, client AH has reportedly been experiencing increased anxiety and agitation recently and has had several outbursts of anger and rage. Were you present for this being reported to Ms. Filati?
No, this is the detox.
Okay.
This is Johnny's.
And it also says your mood has been labile. What, if any, outbursts of anger and rage and labile mood did you exhibit during the detox?
None that she would have seen. None. I was there for Johnny's detox. This is what Johnny was going through. This is not me.
Okay. And at the time of the detox, was Erin Filati your nurse yet?
No, I didn't know her, and she wasn't there.
Okay. Thank you very much. You can take this down, Michelle. Now, I'm going to take you to May 21, 2016, and I'd like you to describe for the jury what took place that evening in connection with Mr. Depp.
Johnny and I had not seen each other for the better part of a month, or about a month. I was traveling. I had just shot a campaign in Italy. I spoke to him around that time when I was in Italy. I had gotten a phone. My parents got a hold of me. After I spoke to my parents, I had communicated with Johnny. He, on that phone call, I didn't know what was going on with him for those weeks. With his sobriety, I didn't know where his state was. I didn't know what state he was in. And when I spoke to him, he was saying what I can only just, he was going on about scientists and DNA and feces, that he had some scientific analysis done and DNA analysis done, and that, as soon as I heard about this feces, he thought that was a prank, and he was going on about all the scientists that he had conferred about the DNA results with. Just thought he was out of his mind, and thought clearly the drinking and the drugs are not getting better. Clearly the delusions aren't better. So
objection calls for speculation.
Your Honor, it's not about the truth of the matter. We're talking about what her.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Please continue.
So I hung up from that phone call, assuming that, and then spoke to him once my parents got a hold of me to tell me about Betty Sue. We made a plan, Johnny and I, for him to come over. He said he really needed his wife. He had lost his mother and he missed his wife. He really needed his wife. He said it over and over again. I felt torn. I felt conflicted. I didn't think, obviously, the situation hadn't gotten better with Johnny mentally, and I was afraid that all the work and progress and distance I had finally got on the relationship for the first time. I had a month of distance on it, I didn't want that to be undone, but I also wanted to be, I was affected by the fact that his mother had passed. So he said he wanted to come over and talk about that, and he said he needed his wife, and we made a plan. We made a plan for him to come over during the day, thinking that might mitigate the amount that he would be drinking. Night is a little bit more dangerous. And in the early evening hours, I get a text from him that he's almost there, or that he's there. I think it was around 7:15 or so. And he came over, and we sat on the couch, and at first it was relatively peaceful. I mean, I could tell he was inebriated, but it makes sense. In my head, it made sense. He wasn't like incoherent. It was peaceful. And then he starts talking about the feces again, and this prank that he said one of my friends had left for him in my bed that he wasn't going to be at. And I tried to point out how that didn't make any sense. I'm not even going to be there. I wasn't there. And my friends wouldn't do that. That's not something a bunch of 30-year-old women think is funny. What is he talking about? And he just kept going on and on about it. So I text my friend that it's...
Objection, hearsay.
Don't tell the jury what you texted your friend, but go to the next thing. What did you do next?
I called my friend thinking that it would quell this, what I could only see as a delusion. I thought it was just a delusion he was having, and I thought, I'll hopefully, quell this by calling my friend to if he hears my friend say that didn't happen.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It's not offering to prove the truth of it. Thank you. Please continue.
So I thought if I could get my friend on the phone to prove that this didn't happen, we could move on and talk about the issues that we should be talking about. You know, our marriage was over and falling apart in front of our eyes. We hadn't seen each other for a month, and his mom had just passed. I couldn't believe he wanted to talk about feces. So I call this friend thinking that we'll take care of it. The friend doesn't answer. I call another friend who is someone else he claimed. I don't know how both people did this, but he was claiming that this person was responsible. So I called that person. And that person is on speakerphone. And I
Tell
say,
us who that person is.
Io.
Io, tell it right?
Io, tell it right.
Okay. And then you put him on speakerphone with Johnny.
Right in front of Johnny.
Okay. And what happened next?
I allowed for an opportunity for Io to say why this is impossible.
Objection, hearsay.
It's not offered to prove the truth of the matter, is asserted, Your Honor. It's explaining the context that leads to the next acts.
Your Honor, it is being offered
We're
to
not
prove
here. We're not here about whether Io.
I'll sustain
on
the
the back.
objection. Next question.
All right. All right. So Io is talking. You can't tell us what he said. Okay.
Objection,
He's
Your
talking,
Honor.
correct?
May we approach?
Okay.
So Io is talking. We can't say what he said. What is the next thing that happens on your end with Mr. Depp?
It just made Johnny madder. He got more upset, grabbed the phone, and started screaming at Io. He just started screaming at the top of his lungs, said, "You dyke bitch, you don't know what you're talking," you know, just screaming expletives, insulting names, and telling Io that he can have me and, you know, fuck off, and just screaming at him. You know, that's best I can describe it without getting into the details. He tosses the phone, you know, down on the couch and heads upstairs. And I pick up the phone and try to, you know, apologize for the fact that my husband at the time just screamed at my friend on a cold call. I didn't want Io to think that's why I had called Io, you know, to just be screamed at and blamed for something that sounded crazy, for lack of a better explanation. It sounded crazy. Io said something to me on speakerphone, and reminded me I wasn't safe.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter. It's to show what caused Mr. Depp to be set off and come back. I mean, it's not offered to prove the truth of what he's saying. It's not hearsay. In that
I'll overrule the
nature.
objection. Go ahead.
Thank you. Please tell us what Io said and what then happened with Mr. Depp.
Io said, "Amber, get out of the house. Get out of the house now. You're not safe. Get out."